So the summer box office is basically about over. There's not really a lot of big movies coming out anymore, unless you consider the Ronald Reagan biopic a big movie. It's really about over, and so now is probably a good time to kind of take a look back at the overall summer box office and just how it did. Spoiler alert, it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. Okay, let's just start with the two big bombs. So the big ones that I really want to talk about is Furiosa and Fall Guy. Both of them really were they were massive disappointments. I mean, both of them were pretty well received. I didn't like Fall Guy. That's a different conversation. But they were both movies that were pretty well received that people really enjoyed that just nobody went to see. Other films like Horizon, Bike Riders, Fly Me to the Moon, probably a movie that nobody even realized even came out in the first place. Those movies were just kind of more of examples of just marketing not doing its job, especially with Horizon. There were definitely, like I said, big bombs with this year, as there is with every summer. But the thing about it is, it feels like with this year, this summer particularly, there's way more bombs than usual. I mean, if you take a look at the overall summer box office, so far it's going to most likely end around $3.5 billion, which is a pretty big number. That's a lot of money that Hollywood is generating. However, it's down from 2023, which made just a little bit more than 4 billion. Now, why is that? What exactly is it about the 2023 box office that had the edge over something like this summer? Barbenheimer. Whenever the biggest thing that you got to think about for what made the 2023 box office so well, the biggest thing that drove it was Barbenheimer. There were also a lot of good superhero movies coming out at the time. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, two very, very strong movies that very much led the domestic box office. And so a lot of what I think it comes down to was 2023. It was a little bit more of a quality summer for Hollywood blockbuster movies as compared to the 2024 summer, where a lot of the blockbusters that they've released really weren't that good. No matter if you look at the top blockbusters from last year and then this year, you can kind of notice a lot of them have kind of dipped down in quality. And I think that's just 2024 just happened to not produce good blockbusters. I don't think there's a bigger thing going on right about that, but I think in terms of the big movies that people went to see in the theaters, 2023, the entire summer, they more consistently had good movies coming out. In 2024, it definitely had a lot of good movies coming out in the second half of the summer. You right around when Inside Out 2 came out, you had a lot more good movies coming out. Because then you had Despicable Me, Deadpool and Wolverine, you had Long Legs, that just recently crossed 100 million. That was a very profitable movie. You also had films like Twisters, which got a lot of people back in the theaters. Then you had Borderlands, okay, and then probably one of the biggest surprises of the summer was It Ends With Us, which has made far more money than I ever expected. And so there's a lot of those kind of movies that kind of started to build momentum on top of itself and kind of got people to go back to the movies more consistently as compared to 2023, where throughout the summer there were a lot of really good movies coming out. I think the biggest takeaway for what the 2024 summer box office really was family movies. I look at Despicable Me 4 and then Inside Out 2 as the two really massive movies that came out. And I mean, obviously, Deadpool and Wolverine came out, the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time. That's still making plenty of money. That's another thing that really kind of led the box office. But it's really top heavy when you look at the 2024 summer box office. And then you look at 2023, where there's definitely Barbie by far made the most amount of money out of any movie that year, but it's kind of, you can see it staying more and more consistent as you go down. There's still a lot of money being made between a lot of other movies, and that just wasn't the case with 2024. And I don't think that the trend's going to continue to go downhill. I think especially 2025, it's going to be a lot of big movies coming out then. and I think that's going to start to kind of regenerate the box office, start to make it go a little bit up again. I don't know if it will get to $4 billion like 2023, but does it have the potential? Of course it does. It has very much has the potential, especially with some of those movies that are coming out. There is also one final number I do want to talk about, and that's how many movies came out. So in 2024, I mean, it might get up to 250, but at the time of recording this, there's 247 movies that played out in theaters in America. And then you look at 2023 with 210, and 2023 still made way more money, like $500 million more than this summer. And I think the 2024 Summit box office, it was just a little bit of a down year. I mean, it's still not a disastrous summer. I mean, there's still $3.5 billion is nothing to be laughing at. And not to mention, it's still staying at a pretty consistent level ever since 2020, especially because we're going from 2021 and counting between the years, they have been staying consistently pretty well. They've been growing every single summer. This is going to be the first one where there is a dip, but you can't always have the numbers going up each and every year. There's always some years where it's going to go down a little bit, and this is maybe a little bit more than just a tiny dip, but it's not a big problem that people should really be worrying about. There's still a lot of good movies, a lot of big movies that came out, but it's not really on that level of what 2023 was like. But I mean, overall, that's really what the summer 2024 box office kind of looked like. There were some big hits, some big misses, but I think overall it was a fine year, especially that second half kind of saving the summer. And it was still, I mean, every year there's always going to be bombs. There's always going to be big surprises, big hits. This year was no different. And I mean, there's also got to look at every year past the summer. I mean, we still have the winter box office, which is always really big money maker, and so we can't just completely look at the summer as like the overall box office. I mean, there was some big movies that came out even before the summer that we just I'm not really talking about, and I think still it's nothing to really think negatively about. Definitely that beginning half had some problems, but it really did fix itself towards the end. And I mean, that's really all I have to say about the video. I mean, if you enjoyed it, like and subscribe. I mean, you've made it this far. Clearly, you don't hate my face. So just think about it, maybe. It always helped me out. I always appreciate it. And that's really all I have to say. So, I mean, until next time, it's movie talk. See ya.